Hey, what's going on? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be starting on a new reading vlog that I'm very excited about. And so in today's reading vlog, I'm going to be only reading books that I think will be 5 stars for me. You know, I'd like to think that I have a pretty good idea and understanding of what I really enjoy in books. And you know, this is not a new concept, like this is definitely something that I've done before. In the past, I've made a lot of like 5-star prediction kind of videos, and so I thought it would be really fun to do an entire video dedicated to only reading books that I think would be 5 stars and kind of like seeing if I still have an idea of like where my taste aligns and like what I like reading. I feel like when doing this experiment, it makes me a little bit nervous and excited because I feel nervous because sometimes I'll read a book that I think will be 5 stars and then I'll just like absolutely hate it, and then I'll question everything that I know. Do I even know my own reading taste? And I feel like this is kind of a similar video concept to something that I just did a few months ago where I could not stop reading during that vlog until I found a 5-star read, which was also very fun. I'll have that vlog linked down below if you missed that. But that is definitely something that I would like to do again on this channel because that was a really fun experiment. And so like this one is also kind of an experiment in its own way. I'm going to be reading 5 different books that I think could potentially be 5 stars for me. And the reason why I decided to do this video this month is actually because I was pulling prompts out of my Patreon jar this month, and I pulled 2 books that I think would be 5 stars for me, and so it just feels like this would be the perfect time to do this vlog. I have very different reasons for why I think some of these books would be 5 stars, and some of these books, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be reading books that have been on my TBR for literally for years. Because the first book I'm gonna be reading for this video is Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance, and this was actually something that I pulled out of my prompt jar because the prompt was to read a book that's been on your TBR for the longest amount of time. And this has been on my TBR since October 2017, which I'm almost positive this is the book that has been on my TBR the longest. But this is something that I have put off for literally 6 years because it's intimidating to me for a number of reasons. I always felt like this could be a book that I could give 5 stars just because I've heard nothing but great things about it. I've heard that the writing is absolutely beautiful and that it's one of those like really moving stories. But this one is also quite a bit outside of my comfort zone because there's some like magical realism elements to this story, and so I think that's why I've been pushing it off for as long as I have. But in this story, we're mainly following this boy named Waylon Gray, and he was, you know, raised by wolves, and he just seems to have some kind of like magical abilities that nobody fully understands. I don't even know if he fully understands, but we just kind of follow this boy throughout his life, and I've just heard that it's absolutely incredible, and so I really wanted to read this one for this video and finally get it off my TBR. I also ended up pulling out a prompt this month that was to read a book that was published on your birthday, and then because of that I discovered that the book How High We Go in the Dark actually did publish last year on my birthday, and this is another book that I've been meaning to read for such a long time. I've been wanting to read this one, and I do feel like this one also just has the potential to be a 5-star. I've heard that this one is just a really like beautiful kind of quiet sci-fi book, which is, you know, kind of my thing. Like I do love books of this nature. I've seen it get compared to Station 11, which is a book that I really loved, and a lot of my friends have given this one 5 stars. Like I know in particular Kayla and Katie both absolutely love this and highly recommend it. So for those reasons, I was really wanting to check this one out, so it kind of felt like perfect timing. I also decided to finally pick up On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong for this vlog because once again, this is another book that I've had on my TBR for such a long time, I think since 2019, and this is another one that I know in my gut, I know that I could potentially give this 5 stars, but the reason why I've been pushing it off for so long is because I've heard that it's really like hard to read. You know, I've heard it's really sad, it's really beautiful, it's really moving. I know a lot of people compare this one to A Little Life, which is one of my favorite books of all time, but also like one of the most depressing books of all time. So I was like, I need to be in a good mental, you know, headspace before I read something like this. But I'm so glad that I'm finally gonna be reading this for this vlog. And then these last 2 picks are kind of random, I'm not gonna lie. I ended up picking up this book, Greek Lessons, and this is by the same author as The Vegetarian, which no, I have not actually read The Vegetarian, but I've heard such incredible things about The Vegetarian, and this one just sounded so interesting. And so I thought maybe this could potentially be a 5-star candidate for me just because the premise sounds really interesting. It sounds like something that I would like, and also it just sounds like it's gonna be one of those books that has really beautiful writing and really great characters from what I've seen in a lot of reviews. I know a lot of my friends have been loving this one recently, especially Jessie over from Bowties and Books. I just saw that they were highly recommending it on their Instagram. I love too that this says Greek Lessons is the story of the unlikely bond between this pair and a tender love letter to human intimacy and connection. It's a novel to awaken awaken the senses, one that vividly conjures the essence of what it means to be alive. Like, does that not sound like it's gonna be absolutely incredible and stunning? Because I think so. And then the last book that I ended up picking up for this vlog was kind of unplanned because I just decided to pick up something wild and wonderful during this vlog. Like, I wasn't originally planning on including this, but it just kind of happened, and I'll explain why later. We'll have to see if I am correct with my reading taste in thinking that these books might be 5 stars. Like, will I find any new favorites in this vlog, or will I absolutely hate any of these? I don't know. We'll just have to see, and you'll have to let me know what you think of this vlog after you finish it, and if you would like for me to do something like this again in the future, because I had so much fun making this vlog, and I've been filming this vlog for like over 2 weeks, so let me send you back to the start.
You feel like summer days to me, warm tender sunny rays. I hope that we are meant to be. You say nothing at all when we meet, yet somehow I know your history. Oh, come what may, I'm ready. Picture frames, lavender paint, they all live here within this romance. I get the chance to stop the run and be the lucky one.
Okay, hello. I wanted to update you because I have started on the first book that I'm planning to read for this vlog, which is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I'm currently reading this and I'm already 110 pages in. I'm almost like halfway through it, and this book has been absolutely incredible so far. And the way that this book is written is very interesting because we're following from the perspective of a young boy, and his nickname is Little Dog. It's interesting because this character is now like reflecting on their childhood, and this story is kind of like a letter to his mother and kind of like discussing how hard his childhood was. And you know, as it says on the inside here, it says On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous is a brutally honest exploration of race, class, and masculinity, you know, because we're following a character who is Asian and queer, and this story is just so, oh my god, it's written in a way that is just so beautiful and it's so hard-hitting. This book has already had so many incredible, like really powerful quotes, like this one on page 9 where they just say, "What is a country but a life sentence?" And then there's this one where he says, "You once told me that the human eye is God's loneliest creation, how so much of the world passes through the pupil and still it holds nothing. The eye alone in its socket doesn't even know there's another one just like it an inch away, just as hungry, as empty. Opening the front door to the first snowfall of my life, you whispered, 'Look.'" Ugh. Like, how beautiful. I also love too the really beautiful quotes about how America is like such a beautiful country depending on where you look and depending on who you are. There's this really beautiful quote where he says, "Who will be lost in the story we tell ourselves? A story, after all, is a kind of swallowing. To open a mouth in speech is to leave only the bones which remain untold. It's a beautiful country because you are still breathing." I really related to there's this really beautiful passage on page 62, and none of these quotes are like super spoilery, by the way. They're just really thought-provoking things that have gotten me thinking. Like this one where he says, "Days I feel like a human being, while other days I feel more like a sound. I touch the world not as myself, but as an echo of who I was. Can you hear me yet? Can you read me? When I first started writing, I hated myself for being so uncertain about images, clauses, ideas, even the pen and the journal that I used. Everything I wrote began with maybe and perhaps and ended with I think or I believe, but my doubt is everywhere." I just relate to that so freaking much, like that uncertainty. Like, look at this quote, "Because a bullet without a body is a song without ears." I'm sorry, what? I also really love too, there was that passage that's on page 80 where he kind of talks about how when immigrants are first moving to America, they're always assuming that, you know, when they go to these jobs like working at a nail salon or somewhere like that, that it'll be a temporary stop. And that's just like the first step, and they'll eventually get a real job soon, as he says. He says, "Where we arrive, fresh off the boat, the plane, the depths, hoping that the salon would be a temporary stop until we get get on our feet, or rather until our jaws soften around English syllables, bend over workbooks as manicure desks, finishing homework for nighttime ESL classes that cost a quarter of our wages. I won't stay here long, we might say. I'll get a real job soon. And then he's saying, but we will do this for decades until our lungs can no longer breathe without swelling, our livers hardening with chemicals, our joints brittle and inflamed from arthritis, stringing together a kind of life. A new immigrant within 2 years will come to know that the salon is, in the end, a place where dreams become the calcified knowledge of what it means to be awake, with or without citizenship, aching, toxic, and underpaid. I hate and love your battered hands for what they can never be. Dude, this book is incredible. It is so beautifully written. I can't wait to continue reading this. Like, I just already have a feeling that this is going to be a 5-star just because of the writing alone. And now that we're like 110 pages in, I'm really getting invested in the plot and like what's actually going on with this character. So like, wow, so far it's been going incredible. I've also just been having a really great day. I actually started off my day this morning by going to the gym right when I woke up, which is not something that I do super often. Like, I'm not usually a morning gym person, but I actually feel amazing because of it. Like, I was able to go work out, like sweat really hard, get some food, come home and shower. And now I've been doing some reading sprints on Patreon that I just started like 2 hours ago. So I've just been reading while I'm on Patreon sprints. I'm probably going to continue these sprints and try to finish up this book today because it is incredible. Look at that beautiful, beautiful steak quesadilla. These tacos are loaded. Holy shit. Got the Sprite because of course. Hamburger and Sprite. Close to my face. Let's move that back. A little bit later in the night, it's almost 10 o'clock, and I wanted to update you because I have finished reading On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Earlier tonight, me and my sister just went to the taco truck. We got some tacos and a quesadilla to share. Oh my god, it was so good, but it was so much food. And then shortly after that, we didn't eat until a little bit later tonight. Like, we ate dinner at like 7:30, which is like kind of late for us. I don't know. We usually are the kind of people who eat dinner around like the 5 o'clock hour, but shortly after dinner, I was able to, you know, lay back in bed with Tank, finish this book. Oh my gosh, this book was absolutely incredible, and this was definitely a 5-star. Like, I knew that it would be. I knew. And I was right. Who has read this book and hasn't given it 5 stars? That's what I want to know. This book was just so freaking gorgeous. Like, it was so well written. I feel like this is one of those books that you could read this 100 times and every time you could take away something different from it. It has these quotes that I just want to analyze. You know, like, I was rereading, there was this one part of this book where I was rereading this one paragraph over and over again because there was just so much to think about, you know? And I feel like especially towards the end, there would just be these paragraphs that were like jumping between all these different ideas, but like all the ideas were connected, but they were also very different. And it was just, oh my god, it's fascinating. Like, this author's brain. I love, there is a quote like towards the end of the book that I'm not gonna spoil for you, but it kind of talks about, you know, it connects it to the title of like why this book is called On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous and kind of like what that means. And that quote was fucking beautiful. If you are curious, it's on page 238. Oh my god. That quote was just incredible. And like that paragraph at the bottom of page 238, that is one of the ones that I was reading that like 3 or 4 times because I was trying to digest all of the things that I just read. But I think this book was so beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. It's very like thought-provoking. It makes you think about life. You know, it's one of those books that just makes you think about life. It's kind of sad. It's definitely sad. It has those like really sad undertones. Not quite as sad as something like A Little Life, but definitely like in that ballpark. I also just thought that there were so many, you know, beautiful but also like heart-wrenching moments when this character is kind of like talking about his sexuality or like exploring his sexuality and his fear of like not having acceptance. There was a really beautiful quote that was on page 186 when he says, in Vietnamese, the word for missing someone and remembering them is the same. And he's like, so sometimes when you ask me over the phone, and he says like the Vietnamese expression, I flinch thinking that you meant, do you remember me? There's just such beautiful writing like throughout this entire book, and like, I don't know what to say about this book that hasn't already been said by like everyone. Like there's so many people that just absolutely love this book, and I completely understand and see why now. You know, it's cool because I actually did read this author's poetry collection last year. They came out with a poetry collection called Time as a Mother, and that poetry collection I thought was really beautiful. I think I gave that one like 4 out of 5 stars. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on Ocean Vuong in the future because his writing just really works for me. It's just absolutely beautiful, stunning. So glad that I was able to, you know, kind of like annotate in this book and tab while I was reading it, because I feel like this is one of those books that like screams that it needs to be annotated. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just so much happening in this book, so I'm glad that I was able to annotate it while I was reading and following along. I feel like this is a book that you could just completely mark up with stuff on almost like every single page, you know?
Up in the sky, I'll carry you home to the mountain near. And soon, my friend, you'll see them again. The ones you left behind, the ones you left behind. And I'll sing for you all the way home. But why does it feel like home
It
is
says, hello. Hello. Right, buddy? You know, just sitting by the window like this and staring out at the window because he gets a pretty good view of the whole neighborhood, so he enjoys this view very much. Hi, hello, what's up? It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I've had a pretty chill morning so far. I made some breakfast. I started a new book. So I have started on Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance. I'm now 112 pages into this. And I'm not gonna lie, at the very beginning I was like, oh gosh, oh no, because it was just getting a little, like, not like too fantasy, but it was definitely like feeling fantasy-ish at the start, you know, because this story is about this young boy who was basically like raised by wolves, and he kind of talks to the wolves, like the wolves are like his friends, and it's just about this young boy who like may or may not have some kind of like magical abilities, like maybe he's able to like control the weather and shit. The exciting thing is that I'm actually really liking this so far. I'm actually loving it, like more than I thought I would. I'm really digging the writing style. I'm really liking the characters. Like the characters are just so well written so far. Something that I'm liking too is that this book is separated into different books, and so like book 1, it takes place in 1979 in Michigan, and it's cool because we follow from the perspectives of, you know, what seems to be like this random young girl and then her dad, and the young girl becomes friends with this kid named Waylon, which also his name is so cool, Waylon. Like I don't know if I've ever heard that name for a boy before, but I love the name Waylon. And so she becomes friends with him, and then it's kind of like also told from her dad's point of view as he's like noticing that she's getting close to this young boy, and he kind of feels like nervous about how close they're getting. But it's interesting because that first part of the book, like I got so invested in those characters, and it only lasted about 50 pages before it moves on to book 2, and now it's taking place in 1980 in Oklahoma. And so I kind of have a feeling that this whole book, it's really interesting because it's told from the point of view of like different people who are in the lives of this kid named Waylon, but I don't know if we ever get his actual point of view throughout the story, but it's just like people who are around him. And so now in book 2, we're following this family who's like taking him in because he's just this kid who like doesn't have anybody, you know, he was literally raised by wolves, and like nobody, like he's an orphan, and there's also some kind of weird like magical things that he can do that nobody fully understands, like not even us as the reader. But it's cool because in book 2, we're following from the point of view of this girl named Lydia, who's going to be like one of the sisters, like one of the girls that's living where this family's taking him in. And then it's also cool because we get the random point of view of a teacher at the school, and she's like she's his teacher at the school that he's going to be attending. I don't know. I mean, I'm still only 110 pages in, but I'm already really impressed by not only the writing. I've already tabbed a few moments that I just thought were such like well-written, beautiful moments. There was even a few moments that like made me laugh, or that made me like, oh, like that is so soft. One of the quotes that I really liked, this is on page 60, and this isn't spoilery or anything, by the way, but it just said, "I had once asked my dad if he believed in magic. He just said that he believed in possibilities, and that year Waylon Gray showed us all just what kind of things were possible." I don't know, dude. There's something about this writing that I'm just really vibing with. You know, I love stories like this where we're kind of like learning about a character without ever actually getting that character's point of view, because it feels like it makes that character like more interesting and more mysterious. And I'm just really curious, honestly, to see where this book is gonna go. I'm curious like how much time is gonna span for this whole story, because I'm like, is it all gonna take place when he's like a younger kid, or do we get to see him like when he's older? Like, I don't really know what to expect with this, but I'm enjoying it so much more than I thought I would. Like, yes! And so now that it's just a little bit after 3 o'clock, I think I want to take a quick little walk around the neighborhood because it's a little bit windy out today, but I just want to get out of the apartment and listen to this audiobook and just kind of like unplug for a little bit. Hello, it is the next afternoon, and I want to apologize for the delayed update, but I am still currently reading Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance. I'm 254 pages into this now, and I'm about 77% of the way through the audiobook, so I have just been flying through this. I was reading a little bit into last night, but I didn't update the vlog at all because I just had a really annoying like GERD flare up last night, and it just like, oh my god, it was like killing my chest, it was hurting my throat, and so I just didn't really feel, you know, in the mood to like be on camera and to update you. Planning on finishing it up right now. I think I'm on part 4 or like book 4 in the book now, and I'm not gonna lie, so far book 4 has been losing me just a little bit, because book 4 takes place in 1998 and it's been book 4 ever since page 190, so for this whole section right here, and I don't know, it's been losing me just a little bit, but I'm hoping that this book really brings it back with like a strong, emotional, powerful ending, which I do think it will. But I'm still really loving the writing in this book. I think the writing is just absolutely beautiful and really like emotional, like it pulls on your heartstrings. And I also just really love the way that this author is writing these characters. Like, I just really enjoy reading about Waylon's character in general. We have had some really unusual kind of like stormy weather in Washington over these last 24 hours, and it's been really windy and really like loud rain last night, so it was kind of like perfect ambiance for like reading this book, because there's a lot of talk in this book about storms and like weather and, you know, how he can maybe control things. Like, I don't fully understand it. I don't know if he even understands what he can do. I'm enjoying it. It definitely is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but it's not like too far outside of my comfort zone that it's like going way over my head, if that makes sense.
You feel like summer days to me, warm tender sunny rays. I hope that we are meant to be. You say nothing at all when we meet, yet somehow I know your history. Oh, come what may, I'm ready.
Hello, it's like 2:30 in the afternoon, but I wanted to update you because I just finished reading Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstance, and this book was really beautiful. Was it a 5-star? I don't think so. I think I'm probably gonna end up giving this 4 stars, which is still a really great, rating. I still really enjoyed this book. I think the only reason why I'm lowering my rating a little bit is because there was a moment in time in this book around book 4 where I just started to feel like a little bit less invested, or the story just started to feel a little bit repetitive to me. But then, oh my gosh, like those last little book or like parts of the book before the ending were so beautiful. I absolutely loved the last chapter of this book, like the one that's right before the epilogue, because there is a little epilogue at the end too. But book 6 is like the last little book in this, and there's only like 1 or 2 chapters in that section, and I loved the way that this book ended. It just gave me all the like warm, fuzzy feelings, I really loved the writing in this. It just has that hint of like that magical kind of feel to it, where it's like something that you can't fully understand, or you don't fully know the magic in this. It's just something that's there, and it's very subtle, and I really enjoyed that. I was kind of nervous, with this being a little bit fantasy like that. I was worried that it would be too out of my comfort zone, but it was like a little bit out of my comfort zone at times, at least with the whole kind of like talking to animals kind of thing. It was a little out of my comfort zone for sure, but I still had a really great time with this book, and I think it's because I just really loved the characters and I loved the writing so much. I will say though that I wasn't the biggest fan of the audiobook. I don't know, like the audiobook narrators that they chose for this book, I just didn't think they were like super good at narrating. Like, I don't know, like especially the audiobook narrators made these characters sound a lot older than I think they were intended to be. Like, it would be the sound of a older man's voice like narrating a young boy, and it was just kind of odd. So I don't know, I wasn't the biggest fan of this one on audio. I do think if you're interested in picking this one up, I would probably recommend just reading it physically, because I don't think the audiobook was very good. I don't know, it kind of almost sounded too like the audiobook was made so long ago, even though this book did come out in 2017, so it's not like that old of a book, but I don't know why. It just sounded like it came out a very long time ago. Like, I don't know why that is. The production quality of it just wasn't very good.
Oh, stop. Can't believe I live in your thoughts. I think about you all the time, morning, evening, and midnight. Such a wonderful delight. Forgo, give up everything that I own.
Hello, hi, it's a Sunday afternoon, and I wanted to update you because I have started on Greek lessons, and this book is one that I am just absolutely flying through already. This book is really short, by the way. It's only around like 170 pages or so, and I'm already 60 pages in. I feel like I added this one to my list of books that could be 5-star reads, because even though I haven't read The Vegetarian, which is a book that this author is really well known for, and that's a book that I know I would probably also love, The Vegetarian, but that's just another one that I haven't gotten around to reading yet. So far, this book has been really powerful and just really beautifully written, like so beautifully written. And in this story, we're just following these 2 characters who are dealing with a lot of different things in their lives, and they're kind of like finding comfort in each other through these things. It's really interesting because she tries to speak, but she has lost her voice, and then he, the teacher that's teaching the Greek lessons in the Greek language in the classroom, he is slowly losing his eyesight and he's slowly going blind. And she's also dealing with the fact that just within the last few months, she's lost both her mother, and then she also just recently lost her son in a custody battle. And then for him, it says he's dealing with the pain of, growing up between Korea and Germany and being torn between 2 cultures and languages, and the fear of losing his independence. And it's just so beautiful, like some of the quotes in this book about language and just like how important language is to like understand each other. Like, I don't know, it's just written in a way that's so beautiful. It says, she moved without language and understood without language, as it had been before she had learned to speak. No, before she had obtained life. Silence, absorbing the flow of time like balls of cotton, enveloped her body both outside and in. It's just written in a way that is so stunning. I've already just been jotting like so many thoughts about the writing in this. I feel like this is definitely one of those books where the writing is the kind of writing that really plays on all of your senses, makes you feel like you can see things things, hear things, taste things. Like this one paragraph when she says, before she lost words, when she was still able to use them to write, she sometimes wished that her own expressions would more closely resemble inarticulacy, a moan or a low cry, the sound of suffering through bated breath, snarling, humming in one's half-sleep to pacify a child, stifled laughter, the sound of two people's lips pressing together and pulling apart. Like that just, doesn't that make you feel and like hear and see and smell like all of the senses? Like it's just so good. And then two other quotes that I really loved as well. One of them says, "What will I now gain through the loss of the visible world?" And that's from the man's perspective who's like slowly going blind. And then he also said, "I realized for the first time that falling in love is like being haunted. Even before I opened my eyes in the morning, you would slip in under my eyelids." Like it's just, it's so beautifully written. I'm loving it so much so far. Oh my gosh. And there's another quote about language that I wanted to share with you that I think is just so beautiful. It says, "Language by comparison is an infinitely more physical way to touch. It moves lungs and throat and tongue and lips. It vibrates the air as it wings its way to the listener. The tongue grows dry, saliva spatters, the lips crack." I think it's because, you know, we're following a character who is no longer speaking and is silent, and then because we're following a character who is slowly like losing his eyesight, I think this author is doing such a great job of showing like what those senses can do for someone that has them. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so beautiful. It's so thought-provoking. It's so interesting so far, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm probably going to finish this up today. I'm currently doing some Patreon reading sprints, and I've only done one sprint so far, and I'm already like almost halfway through the book because it's so short, so I should have no issue finishing this up on sprints today.
Slow. Hold you in my arms, won't let go. The world around could pass us by, a thunderstorm, a lightning strike, as we hold each other tight. You're the rose in a garden, and it shows if I'm honest. You're the leaves in mid-August, and I've come out here to say that I love you.
I have finished reading Greek lessons, and this story was really freaking beautiful. I think it was so gorgeously written. I think though the ending of the book, it did start to lose me in a way, and I don't know if it's just because I was like too dumb to understand. Like some of it was going a little bit over my head, I think, and the ending got very like poetic in a way where it's just doing like one line at a time kind of thing, which I thought was really beautiful, but it was also like, I don't know, it was a little bit distracting for me. But the way that this book was written was just so freaking gorgeous. Like I definitely want to read more from this author in the future. There was this one quote that said, "If snow is the silence that falls from the sky, perhaps rain is an endless sentence." Like, is that not just like so stunning and such a beautiful way to look at words? Like language worn ragged over thousands of years from wear and tear by countless tongues and pens, language worn ragged over the course of her life by her own tongue and pen. Each time she tried to begin a sentence, she could feel her aged heart. Just the way that this book talks about like language in general and how powerful language can be was just really impressive. Like I honestly, I don't know if I've ever read a book quite like this that talks about language the way that it does in such a beautiful way. And so I don't know, I really enjoyed this one. I think for me, it's probably closer to a 4-star book than a 5-star book, but I'm still so glad that I gave this one a shot. It is such a quick read too. Like, you know, it's only 170-ish pages. You can get through this whole thing in like one afternoon pretty much. And it was a really enjoyable reading experience. I just think the writing is what stands out the most to me about this book, and what I'm going to take away and remember the most about it was how beautiful the writing is. So that makes me really excited to check out more books from this author.
He was sunshine, I was midnight.
Okay, so listen, this is what happened. I was planning to only read like one more book for this vlog, you know, but I'm still waiting on the audiobook from my library. So like in the meantime, while I was waiting for that audiobook to come in, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna start reading Something Wild and Wonderful. And this is a male romance book that I've been excited about because it's from an author that, Anita Kelly, the last book that they wrote was, what was it called? Love and Other Disasters. It was one that I read last year, and that book, I thought it was okay. I think I gave it like 3 stars, but I did say after reading that I really loved this author's writing and that I would definitely read more from them in the future. And so I bought this book, I think like last month or whenever I did that book shopping vlog with my mom. I just ended up buying this one because it looked cute and it sounded interesting. And this one, the thing that really intrigued me was that it was about these 2 guys who are hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail, which, if you don't know, one of my favorite books of all time, Wild, that like nonfiction book, is about this woman who hikes the Pacific Crest Trail. So ever since reading Wild and loving Wild as much as I did, I've been wanting to read more, you know, like fictional things about the Pacific Crest Trail, and just like, I don't know, the idea of like hiking inspires me, or like it really intrigues me. Like it's something that I would really like to read about. And so this is about these 2 guys who meet each other when they're on the trail like hiking, and then it's just kind of about their journey together. It's really cool because the Pacific Crest Trail is like this whole trail that's along the coast of the Pacific. So it goes all the way from like California through Oregon and through Washington. So it's, you know, the coast of America that I am very familiar with, you know, because I'm from California and then I currently live in Washington. So I feel like this setting just also really intrigues me. But the thing is that I wasn't planning to read this book for this vlog because, you know, I mean, of course, I was hoping that this was going to be a 5-star read because I feel like with every romance, I feel like there's potential for it to be a 5-star for me. But for some reason, I wasn't expecting this one to be a 5-star read, but I'm only about 146 pages in, and oh my god, I'm obsessed! I'm obsessed. I'm so obsessed. I love it so much. I've been tabbing like crazy. And you know what was so funny is that I started listening to this audiobook yesterday when I was on the drive home, and then I was like, oh my gosh, no, like I need to annotate this immediately because I was already feeling so connected to these characters. And so just today, this morning, I went back in, and because I had gotten up to like chapter 10, I want to say. I got about like 80 pages in just with the audiobook yesterday when I was driving, and so I went back in today and added in all of my like annotations and my little tabs because I'm just I love these characters and this story so much already. And this was like so unexpected, but now I'm feeling like maybe this one could be a 5-star. So I was like, I need to turn on my camera and start vlogging this because holy shit. And so in this story, we're following our main protagonist. His name is Alexi. And then he meets this guy named Ben when he's on the trail. And Ben is kind of traveling with like a bigger group of people, or like he's met people while he's hiking, but Alexi has pretty much been on his own this entire time. And it's really cute because they meet because Alexi has this like run-in with a snake, and it's like this whole like scary situation, and so Ben is able to like save him and like help him out. And then he kind of just talks to him and he's like, why are you on your own? And Alexi just said like he just kind of wanted to be on his own out here. He's like going through some stuff. It is sad because Alexi's family has recently basically like disowned him because he's gay, which is so frustrating, obviously, like, and really hard to read about. And then Ben is kind of also going through some things where, you know, he's kind of feeling like uncertain about his future. He's gonna be like working as a nurse, and he doesn't really know if this is like the right path for him or if this is something that he should be doing because he doesn't feel confident enough in himself. But like they just have the cutest chemistry so far. Like all of their conversations when they've been like hiking have just been so freaking cute. There was also this really freaking cute scene that was like around the 70-page mark where Alexi was kind of like talking about his love for these like fantasy books, but they're kind of like children fantasy books, you know, and because he's like, do you really want to know the whole story? And he's like, I do. Will you read it to me? And Alexi's like, wait, what? And he's like, I promise I won't make fun of it. And like he like reads him part of his little fantasy books. Like that is so freaking cute. It was giving major like fangirl vibes, you know, when she like reads the fan fiction. Some parts of this are making me like so sad because you can tell that Alexei has a lot of insecurities, and like, you know, you can tell that people have mistreated him a lot because of his sexuality. So like sometimes he'll like say things like, oh, are you making fun of me? Like he'll just like assume that Ben is making fun of him because he asks him if he like wants a margarita, and he's like, what are you making fun of me because like you think gay guys like margaritas? Like he seems like very insecure in his sexuality because of the way that people have treated him in his life, and it's so sad. It's like breaking my heart. But oh my god, their freaking chemistry is just so on point. It's so freaking cute. I'm obsessed. I love too like the way this book is written. Like it's just written in a way that's so gorgeous. The way that it talks about like the scenery when they're hiking, you know, he says, this place, this trail, this state, the world was so mind-guttingly gorgeous, full of more than you could ever know, peaks and valleys, and seriously so much sand. Everything about the natural world made sense to him, from bedrock to oceans to an entire sky filled with birds. Isn't that just beautiful? Like I feel like I'm right there. And then also the way that they like talk about each other. Oh my god. He says everything about Ben was soft and comforting and always had been. Soft cotton and campfires, the warmth of hot chocolate and spring sun. Ben was moss and redwoods, everything that called Alexei home. Ugh, are they not precious? And the way that Ben calls him Lex, and like it's his cute little nickname, and he's like, nobody's ever called me Lex before. Like, bitch! They're adorable. I am screaming inside. This looks like it's gonna be 5 stars so far. I mean, I don't know. We're still early, okay? I'm still only like a third of the way through, but I just had to let you know because I'm losing my mind. Like, this might be my favorite romance that I've read this year so far. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just a Pacific Crest Trail girly. Like, maybe I need to go and hike this Pacific Crest Trail. Like, I don't think I could ever actually do that. I'm not cut out for this lifestyle. I just love reading about it for some reason. And add a cute ass romance on top of it. I am here, sign me up. I think I'm going to take a shower and wash my hair because it's feeling like it needs to be washed. I've also just been feeling super like icky today. Like I've just had cramps and I just haven't been feeling the best. So I've just been laying here in bed for most of the day reading. But I think I'm gonna try to wash my hair and be a little bit more like a normal human, and then maybe eat some dinner. But then after dinner tonight, I literally might just lay in my bed and try to read this whole book tonight because it is making my heart so happy. I think Tank is also enjoying this book, you know? He seems to be also having a good time.
Take a train ride just to see you. Ride for hours just to please you. You don't know how much I need you, 'cause you're my home away from home, away from home, away from being alone.
Hey, hi, I'm back with another update because I have finished Something Wild and Wonderful. I've been doing a pretty terrible job at updating this vlog because it's taken me about 2 days to get through the rest of this book, and I just haven't had the time to read or to update this vlog. I mean, yesterday was a really great day. I went out and had breakfast with my dad. We went to the Guitar Center because I've been debating selling the 2 guitars that I have and getting a new guitar. I just really want a black Taylor guitar, like more than anything in this world. But at that Guitar Center, they have really beautiful black guitars, and then they have really beautiful Taylor guitars, but they don't have a black Taylor guitar. And for some reason, that's specifically the kind of guitar that I'm looking for, so I think I'm gonna hold off for now. But then yesterday, I was busy doing some video editing, and then today, me and Rachel went grocery shopping, which took like almost all of the morning. Now, I don't know, there's just been a lot going on, but luckily this afternoon, I was doing some, you know, like laptop work. Like I was just making a bunch of thumbnails and starting to plan my like Patreon June schedule. And so while I was doing that, I was able to listen to the rest of this on audio, and this book was so freaking cute. This book was like a warm freaking hug, you know, like this book was just adorable. I really enjoyed the chemistry between these two. Like I feel like these two have some of the best chemistry that I've read in a romance book in a while. But I also think, you know, in the second half of this book does have that kind of like cliche miscommunication, or at least like it has that kind of romance trope where the characters' insecurities really get in the way of them thinking that that this relationship could be something that's real, or they think that things are just like too good to be true. And it's not like that's like an unrealistic thing to happen, because I know that can totally happen. It's just not my favorite romance kind of trope, because it just doesn't feel like a real genuine conflict, you know, which not that a romance book really needs that, but I just feel like it makes the second half of the book feel so long, because you're just waiting for these characters to realize that like everything's good and they're meant to be together. And so I don't know, the second half of the book wasn't like my top favorite. Like I definitely preferred the first half, but I still think that I'm probably gonna end up giving this like 4.5 stars. I don't know if it's a perfect 5-star for me. I would probably need more time to think about it and see how long I'm thinking about these characters, you know, after, but this book was such a joy to read. And honestly, like I'm so surprised that I loved it as much as I did, because the last book that I read from this author was just okay. So like I wasn't too sure if I was gonna end up loving this or not, but I'm so glad that I just like randomly took the chance and bought this at a bookstore. I feel like this would also be a book that I could see myself rereading this in the future because of how cute it was, you know, and it does have that perfect kind of like, I don't know, like summery vibe to it because of the like outdoors and the hiking together. It's definitely got really great vibes in this one, so I'm very happy about it. I'm also happy because I finally just got this book checked out from my library, and I got the audiobook checked out from my library as well. I was like, if I don't get this audiobook checked out in the next few days, like I'm just gonna have to download it from Libro, or, you know, just try to read it physically. But lately just trying to read books physically without the help of the audiobook has been like really difficult for my brain. Like for some reason my attention span, like my focus is just complete shit these days. So I'm so glad it ended up working out, because for the longest time it kept saying I was #1 in line for like over a week waiting for this audiobook, and I was like, what's taking so long? But the audiobook gods are on our side, because I was able to get this audiobook checked out now. So I think I'm going to be starting on this first thing tomorrow. I'm so excited. I'm gonna be doing some Patreon reading sprints with Gavin tomorrow, which I'm so excited about, because Gavin is the bestie, you know. Gavin's so great. I adore him so much. Hello, how's it going? I figured it was time to update this vlog because I have read the entirety of How High We Go in the Dark all day today. You know, earlier today I was doing some reading sprints with Gavin, and I was just hanging out. We were doing reading sprints for probably like 4.5 hours, which was really cool to get the chance to like, you know, hang out with him and catch up. And then afterwards we made a quick dinner. We made this really good, you know, broccoli chicken Alfredo kind of dinner that we've been really into lately, and that was really good. And then afterwards I got a notification from my library that like one of my holds just came in, and this book is actually due to the library in like the next 3 days. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna drive down to the library and I'll finish listening to this on audio in the car and just sit in the parking lot. I've just been sitting here in the parking lot for like the last 20 or 30 minutes finishing this up. I didn't even get the chance to tell you like what this book is even about, but it's basically, it says for fans of Station 11 right here on the inside flap, and I could not agree more with that, because it feels very similar to Station 11 in the way that this is a book that's kind of, you know, it's like about a pandemic, but it's not really like about the pandemic, you know? But in this story, it's really interesting because it takes place mostly in the years of like 2030 is like when this pandemic is mostly happening, but we do span over a couple of different years throughout this entire book. And it's so interesting because it says researchers are studying long-buried secrets, and they find this girl who appears to have died from this ancient virus. And then once this virus gets unleashed, it's called the Arctic Plague, and it says the Arctic Plague will reshape life on Earth for generations to come. And so we kind of follow all of these different characters that are in very unique situations, and we kind of get to see how all of these different people are dealing with this plague. It's so cool because it's definitely one of those books where like the plague obviously plays a huge part in the overall story, but the story itself is not really about the pandemic. It's more about like how people are trying to get on with their lives after the pandemic has already started, kind of. But it's interesting horrifying because some of the descriptions about like what this plague is and what it does was genuinely so like awful and disturbing, because it says this young girl would die a month later from organ failure. Like, this is after she started showing first symptoms. Her lungs, cells, and tissues had transformed to resemble a liver, and it said her heart had begun to form the structures of a tiny brain. Like, I'm sorry, what exactly is this plague doing to people? Like, that is so horrifying. It's like making your body think that it's like the cells of another organ or something. Like, I don't even fully understand what this plague is really, but the idea of it is absolutely horrifying, and the death rate is absolutely horrifying. And like, yes, it is still scary to read pandemic books, you know, so shortly after COVID. I mean, you know, we're still dealing with a lot of the situations with our pandemic and with our world, and so it made it extra like scary and eerie to read this. But I feel like this is one of those books where, you know, the humanity and like the characters are really what make this book great. There's one character in particular and like one storyline that really interested me, and it was this guy who was like a comedian, and he ended up working at this place. It says it's a theme park that is designed for terminally ill children. Like, that is what it comes to basically in this world, is that they have these theme parks that are dedicated to these terminally ill children. And then it was kind of about his story about how he started to develop this romance with this mom who was like really afraid of like losing her own son. And that storyline was definitely the most intriguing to me out of like all of the different kind of storylines that we get throughout the book. But there was a lot of interesting ones. Oh my gosh, there was this one about this scientist who figured out a way to like communicate with this pig, which that was really cool as well. I don't know, I feel like because this is a book where we don't follow the same characters for like the entirety of the book, like it's definitely a situation where all of these stories kind of connect and they're all linked in a really interesting way. But because there's like so many different stories and things going on, I found myself caring more about certain like timelines and certain characters more than others. And I don't think this was, you know, like the perfect 5-star for me, but I still think this was probably like a 4-star read. I really enjoyed myself while reading this, and I think the writing in this book was absolutely gorgeous. Like, I almost wish that I didn't have this library copy, because I feel like this would be a really good one to annotate and just like mark up, because there were so many beautiful quotes and beautiful moments. I also just especially loved that final chapter. Like, I almost just teared up in this parking lot because I was like, that's beautiful. That final line of the book, oh, it almost made me like gasp out loud because it was just stunning. And I'm just super impressed by this book. I can see why this one was highly recommended to me. I can see why so many of my friends are absolutely loving this. I do think if you like Station 11, I would highly recommend checking this one out. It just has that same kind of vibe to it and like that feel to it and the beautiful writing and like the post-apocalyptic kind of feel to it. It definitely reminds me a lot of that, so I can see why people are comparing this to that. But yeah, wow, amazing. I can't believe this vlog has already wrapped up. Oh my gosh. I'm actually super satisfied and happy with how well this vlog went, because like, even though not every read was a 5-star in this vlog, I feel like I enjoyed everything, like almost everything that I read for this vlog, which is so rare, you know, because now every now and then when I think that a book is going to be 5 stars, sometimes I end up like absolutely hating it or even like DNFing it. But with this video, I feel like the success rate was pretty good, because even though not every book was a 5-star, I think the lowest rating I gave out was a 4-star, right? I don't know, I've been filming this video for like over 2 weeks now, so I'm getting all of my videos mixed up and I don't remember all of the books that I read for this video off the top of my head. But I do think that this was a very successful reading vlog, and I would love to do something like this again in the future, where I just read all these books that have been on my TBR for literally forever, and these books that I think will be 5 stars. I think it's such a fun video concept, so do let me know what you think of this video and if you would like to see more videos like this from me in the future. And I would also love to know if you've read any of the books that I read in this vlog. I would love to know what you think of them, if they are also 5-star books for you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.